Hello, everybody. We're going to finish out our Unit 4. So, the last thing we have to talk about is sexual reproduction, as in fertilization and development. So, of course, fertilization is obviously um, a sperm and an egg that comes together, and that's called a zygote. Remember, sperm is haploid and an egg is haploid. When they come together, they become diploid. Remember, di means two, okay? And then when the egg and sperm comes together, it becomes a zygote, and we call zygote a fertilized egg. However, there are two types of fertilizations. We have external and we have internal. So external is the union of sperm and egg outside of the body, okay? And it usually occurs in water. So, like, for instance, if it's raining, like this is right here is a mosquito. If it's raining a lot, we have what? A lot of mosquitoes. When Hurricane Matthew came, we had a lot of frogs and we had a lot of mosquitoes that decided to develop. What happens is they drop the eggs and sperm on the water. And so the sperm and obviously the egg is just random, One mosquito drops her eggs and a male decides to drop his sperm, and when they come together, they become larvae, and then the larva becomes pupa, and then boom, you have your mosquitoes, and it reproduces quickly externally. So think about it. Even fish, they can drop hundreds of eggs off at one time, and then think about frogs. They can have many uh, eggs released at one time. Internal is the sperm and egg that happens inside of a female, which is going to happen inside of her oviduct or your fallopian tubes. So what happens is when she has a cycle, an egg is released, okay? During the egg being released, and the shedding of this lining is what causes a woman to bleed. However, when a man um, is trying to impregnate a woman, the sperm will flow up through the fallopian tubes and find the egg that was released. Um, a woman can only get pregnant about 5 days after her period. So after the whole blood and everything has happened, it's then, and she has about 3 days to get pregnant. Um, you don't get pregnant before your period. You get pregnant right after your period. It's about, again, maybe 3 to 5 days after your period is when the egg is actually then here fertilized. When the egg is pushing out this way, this is what's causing the bleeding. And so when the sperm comes, the sperm can live in the body up to 3 days. Um, if it's a good sperm, it can be up to 7 days. But here, it fertilizes with the egg, and once it fertilizes, it tramples down the fallopian tube, and it finds a place in the uterus to develop the baby. So there's different stages though within the fertilization, and the biggest ones we want to talk about is what happens with the zygote. So the zygote undergoes a whole big old thing of mitotic cell divisions called cleavage. Okay, um, starts off as one, and all of a sudden, multiple cells begin to develop. And then, as you see here, um, we have the yolk sac and the heart, and everything begins to develop, and then we end up having a little baby. So part of the zygote, it does come in stages. So one of the first stages you have to know is called the blastula. The blastula is a formation of a hollow ball made up of single cells, as you see here. It's a single cells, and and everything's multiplying. Once we get to the next one, it's called invagation or gastrulation, and this is when the side of the blastula pushes inwards, causing it to be now embryonic. Whenever you have a full embryo, that means there is a baby on the way. This is called gastrula. And again, during this time, it has three germ layers. So once the zygote goes through as a blastula and the gastrulation takes place, now we're getting ready to develop a baby. And the first layer is called the endoderm. Endo. That's going to mean inside. Okay, so these are going to be your inside cells. So this is going to be your organs, your digestive system, your respiratory system. Okay, so this is all inside. The next layer is ectoderm. Well, if endoderm means inside, ecto means outside. Okay, so we have skin is on our outside, right? Our nerves are hitting our outside. Well, if endo is inside and ecto is outside, meso is obviously your middle. And the middle is between the ectoderm and the endoderm. So this is giving us the muscles and the skeleton, like your reproductive systems and circulatory. So this is what happens through here. So the zygote, this is when it's fertilized egg and it goes through its things, which is again called cleavage. When the blastula comes, this is multiple cells. When gastrulation happens, remember it says it goes inwards. Once it goes inwards, this is when we start getting the endoderm, the ectoderm, the mesoderm that take place. So this is another picture to show you egg and sperm make cells and they keep on going and going and going. So the differentiation and the growth. So the germ layers differentiate to form various cells and tissues and organ systems developing in the animal. So as you see here, the mesoderm is the middle. So that's the muscles, the cardiac muscles and the smooth muscles, the red blood cells. The endoderm, which is going to be inside, is your lung cells, your thyroids, the pancreatic, the stuff that's more inside. And obviously your ectoderm is the skin cells, and all this came from a sperm and an egg fertilizing. So there's two types of development though. We have external and we obviously have internal. External is when it happens outside the female's body and the embryo is in the food, obtains food in the form of yolk. Okay, so basically birds and reptiles. So as you see, eggs that are exterior, um, because what happens when a bird gets pregnant, she just pops out an egg, and the baby grows in the egg, and the baby doesn't grow in the mama. So that's external. So let's talk about a bird egg. We all eat eggs. This is the best way to understand even um, probably even chicken eggs. Chicken is a bird. So yolk sac. So the yolk sac surrounds the yolk, the embryo's food source. So this is it right here. And then we have the amnion, which is the sac that surrounds the embryo, which is here. Now the amnion is basically the white, the clear part of the egg. Obviously the yolk inside of an egg is yellow, right? Amniotic fluid is everything that's inside of here because it is a watery fluid that cushions the egg. So this is going to be all the extra fluid. The chorion is the membrane that lines the inside of the egg. So right here, if you ever crack the egg open, and you will notice that it has a shell, but then there's that thin, like a clear membrane that's on the inside of the shell, that's your chorion. Then we have the cloaca, which it stores uric acid and nitrogenous waste. And if you're trying to figure out what that is, that's pee and poop. Okay? Pee and poop. So internal. Now this is obviously the more common sense. This is what we know as when the embryo is growing inside of a female. And obviously most mammals, not all of them, but most mammals, and the eggs have a little yolk. We have something as an animal, it's not really called a yolk. We have an embryo, right? And we have a water sac. So when a woman gets ready to have birth, her water breaks. So mammals are young, um, that nourished at birth by milk from the mama's mammary glands. And if you don't know what that is the breast or the nipples. And what happens is our bodies as women begins to create the milk and the substances that are needed to give to the children. Like a dog, most of the time, how many nipples and stuff that they have is kind of how big their litter can be, or how many dogs they can hold, even down to a cow. What the udders are there so it can, when the cow has a baby, it can drink its milk. Um, so there are three types of mammals. Obviously, this is me. This is my daughter. That's my husband. So that's the Cheek family right there for you. Okay. And that's actually a recent picture of us. Um, however, obviously, I'm a mammal, but then we have this. We have the marsupials and the monotremes. Okay. Obviously, for humans, we have placentas, and that is when the embryo is develops inside the uterus, as I mentioned before, and the female body begins to send food to the baby and gets rid of the waste through the placenta. So this right here, it's like the placenta will hold on to the uterus and provide food. As you see, this is why we have the umbilical cord, because the umbilical cord gets food from the placenta, and so your belly button is how your mama used to feed you inside of your and while you was inside of her stomach. So the placenta is a temporary organ that forms within the uterus from embryonic and maternal tissues. The umbilical cord connects to the embryo to the placenta, contains blood vessels that carries dissolved materials between the mother and the embryo. So this is when the mama eats and the baby start having taste buds. The baby will can actually trigger hormones and be like, man, I have like a weird taste to eat today. And so the umbilical cord, whatever the mama eat, that's what, and it goes straight to the baby. The baby also can sense if they don't like it. If that food comes in the umbilical cord, that's what makes a woman nauseous. She begins to throw up. So again, the biggest example is humans. So here is just a picture. Here is, I'm gonna just extend this picture. This right here will be the vagina, and after the vagina we have the cervix. Then the baby grows here. This little area is the cervix. All of this here is the uterus. Now imagine the uterus is honestly about the size of a fist, but the uterus stretches to the size of the baby. Um, of course, the fetus is what we call the baby. Okay, the umbilical cord. You see the placenta, which is a little bit different. It will find itself somewhere to sit. Um, and that's basically the placenta way. So this is obviously your monotrans, which is egg laying. So that we have a little platypus. Um, marsupials, which is your kangaroos. Now you see that pouch right there. Some people have asked questions about that. You know what that pouch is? That pouch is the female reproductive organ. And so the baby grows inside that pouch. When the baby gets big, it jumps up out the pouch, which is the woman's reproductive system. And then it goes back in there as a house until it feels comfortable. So again, that's the kangaroo. But let's review some of the questions because we're finally done with mitosis and meiosis, and we're also done now with asexual and sexual. So, what is the normal sequence of events in the development of the embryo of an animal? Fertilization, right? Cleavage, the blastula, and then gastrulation. Those is your order. So fertilization is a zygote when sperm and egg meets. Cleavage is when the cells begin to divide. Blastula is the area that we begin to fold inside, and the gastrulation is when it begins your germ layers. So remember your ectoderm, mesoderm, endoderm. This is a pic of what? A blastula. Does not have all the cells yet. It is building the cells. It's hollow. In humans, fertilization usually occurs in the oviduct or fallopian tubes, right? That's what happens at. In early development of a zygote, the number of cells increases without an increase in mass by a process known as cleavage. Okay, so remember zygote, cleavage. So this is when the numbers just start adding up. Bastula is the getting ready to fold on the inside, but the cells are now continue to multiply, and it's a hollow cell. And gastrulation is when it folds fully inside and begins to make the endoderm, ectoderm, and mesoderm. So you all of this right here is testable, not just for me, but for the ELC.